In this video, I send a Nissan Micra for scrappage.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am still without my intro screen. There's one in development. It will arrive shortly. It'll be in maybe my next video or the one after that. I don't know when, but there is a new intro screen coming. As I said in the intro to this video, the Micra is going for scrappage, and the reasons why it's going for scrappage is: one, I got a new project car. Two, this particular Micra was covered in rust from front to back, and it had many electrical gremlins going wrong with it. Also, the engine was overheating, so there was that too. I know a lot of people would say, well, if it's a project car, you're supposed to pour a lot of money into it and it's supposed to mean more to you than whatever, but this was a 1 litre automatic. It was never going to be a world beater. It was basically just a stopgap car for my wife, and we never meant to have this car for as long as we did. It served her for maybe 2 years flawlessly. She never had an issue with it. It was only when I took ownership of it, when she got her new car, that this thing really started to show its problems, and its biggest problem was probably myself, because I drove the car so hard and I just basically abused it on a daily basis. The first thing to break on this car was the distributor cap. The distributor cap gives power to the spark plugs, and if the distributor cap's not working, then the spark plugs don't spark and you don't get any combustion in the chambers, and that's it, you don't get drive. So once that broke, I managed to get a second hand one. The car worked again for another little while. It was running fine, and then the engine started overheating, and it just became one big problem after another straight after that. As I said, the electrical gremlins started to creep in, but with the rust in particular, anybody who's had a K11 will know, as soon as you get rust, you want to sort it out quickly, otherwise it just grows out of control. The entire front end of this car was completely rotten. In behind the front bumper was just rust everywhere. Like, the car was actually starting to flake apart with rust. The front subframe was pretty much rotten to the core. I don't know how the engine managed to stay in, given the condition of underneath the car. There was rust down both side sills and rust in the rear arches. So in order to save this car, I would have probably had to spend about $2,000 on welding and stuff like that, which just doesn't make any sense considering that the car was only worth about €150 anyway. The electrical problems with this car were the central locking couldn't make up its mind if it wanted to lock the doors or unlock them, so it was consistently bouncing around the place just randomly as you're driving along. If you hit a hard enough bump, the doors would just start locking and unlocking like crazy. But then interior trim started falling off. One of the main actual locks for the door just stopped working, so the back doors had to be tied together with bungee cord and stuff like that, and the car was just really starting to become a bad mess. But aside from all the trouble I had with this car, I did have some really great times with this car. Between putting the sticker bomb stuff on it and changing out some of the engine parts for better parts or whatever, this car I had a blast with. I remember the day I went to test drive this car when I was first going to buy it, and I took a corner, the ignition key fell out of the ignition, and the car just kept driving. So I don't even know if the immobilizer was actually working on this car or not, but I've never driven a car with the ignition key out of it when it's not one of those remote start cars. So this car just had its quirks from day one. It's not sad to see it go, because I do have a new project car, so the Micra is just gone now. I may go back to the breaker's yard in a few weeks' time and just see, is the car still there? Has anybody stripped any parts off of it, or has it just disintegrated in the wrecker's lot? But as I said, I couldn't fault this car until I took it. Until I started driving it and I drove it hard, I abused this car daily, and that's when it started getting its biggest problems. When the engine started overheating, initially I thought it was the thermostat, so I changed that out for a new one. Then I put flushes and all that sort of stuff through the radiator and through the coolant parts, and it just kept overheating, and that was until I took off the water pump, once I got access to that, I realized that the propellers on the water pump were absolutely shot to bits. They were just disintegrated with rust and stuff like that. And I drew the line in the sand at that moment in time. I was just like, this car has got to go. It's just falling apart. It's becoming a big nasty rust bucket. There was rust on one of the doors. The whole inside of that door was completely rotten, and the car just had to go. So that decision was made. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a thumbs up. Until the next time, take care.